Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where 21st century educators come to share, learn, and be inspired. We believe in the growth mindset, creativity, communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and strategic uses of education technology. Our mission is to share news and views from teachers who are crushing it in the classroom and making a difference for learners everywhere. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's jump into today's episode.
Today I'm speaking with Lindsey Danhoff. Lindsey describes herself as a first grade lead learner, creativity and innovation seeker. She enjoys inspiring learners to be curious about their world and feel empowered to change it. Lindsey, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
Yes, of course.
Why don't you start by describing your current teaching lineup?
Sure. So I'm in Worthington, Ohio. It's one of the first suburbs in Columbus, Ohio. I'm at a school called Evening Street Elementary, and it's a suburban neighborhood school that has a really great reputation and traditions and standard of excellence. And I'm currently teaching first grade, but I look forward to teaching third grade next year.
Very cool. Well, I haven't had the opportunity to speak to too many primary and elementary teachers, so very excited to have you on, and I look forward to hearing more about innovation in the early grades.
Totally.
Let's start, though, before we get there, let's start at a low moment that you faced in your teaching or education career and tell us how you overcame it.
Sure. So as a change maker, when I'm on a team, or I personally have an idea, sometimes it can be met with skepticism or critique. And that can be hard to navigate when you're coming up, with new ideas to try. And I feel like in this changing world of education, many people worry about how new ideas might be perceived by others who take more traditional approaches to education. But I've learned to follow John Gordon's advice of, fight the good fight, refuse to give up, ignore the critics, believe in the impossible, and show up and do the work. And that's what I try to always remind myself. And, time again, when I'm on a team that worries about what other people are going to think, when we do what's best for kids, it usually does have a positive impact. And for example, our creativity and innovation at our team at my school rethought our end of the year assembly this year. So instead of individually recognizing students with, personal awards or things like that, we rethought how we could recognize everyone's growth in all the classrooms. So we completely redesigned the assembly, and there was a lot of what are people going to think about this? What if they don't like it? What if they don't want to do it? But we made our case. We communicated our purpose to our colleagues, and yesterday was our end of the year assembly, and it was really well received and had a positive impact both on staff and students.
Well, I applaud you and your team for your courage. I know that's a difficult and sort of a challenging change to make depending on your community. But
yes.
And it's also not about, just every kid gets a trophy either, but it is about, it sounds like, recognizing that every learner is on their own path and celebrating that growth. So that's very cool.
Yeah, we're definitely a growth mindset school, and that's definitely one of our goals and focus. So reinventing this assembly was a way to honor everyone's growth mindset this year.
Awesome. What is it, Lindsey, that really excites you about education today?
I'm really excited about the emphasis on creativity and innovation, and the idea that educators are responding to the creativity crisis. So, it's been identified that the creativity in our nation is decreasing since about 1990, and there's significant decreases after kids reach sixth grade. But I feel like education is really rallying behind that, and there's being books written about it and documentaries being created. And, you look all over Twitter, and educators are taking this creativity crisis seriously and doing what they can to rethink what they're doing in the classroom and bringing creativity back into what we do.
Mm-hmm. That is really cool. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with sort of the movement on Twitter in that direction. And I just wish more teachers would plug into that
Yes.
pipeline of ideas.
Totally. I mean, I believe creativity is the basis of innovation and change. And, companies like Google are saying that's what they need. And I just really hope people can get behind this idea of preparing our students to face a future of ambiguity. And I think the demands of creativity can really help students overcome challenges that the future might bring them.
You are preaching my language, and I'm so I'm so intrigued to hear about how this connects at grade 1 and second grade, third grade, these primary levels, because I teach coding a little bit later on in around 8th grade, and one of the skills we talk about is just that computational thinking piece, the problem solving piece.
Sure.
And the idea that it's not just about the immediate skills, it's about habits of thinking. So how does that translate at the primary levels?
Yeah, so this year I've really experimented with passion projects in first grade, and I noticed that my students had a lot of questions like, how do I speak Spanish, or how do I make this origami? And so I kind of just opened up the idea of like, well, let's do some research. Let's get on our Chromebooks and let's read books and watch videos and figure this out. And so, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen, but by the end of the year, every single student in first grade has presented a passion project on something that they were interested in about. And they used, problem solving to figure out Google Slides, and they collaborated to make, posters or models. And I think even in the primary grades, when you give up control, it's amazing what they can do.
That is so incredible. I love hearing about that. Lindsey, we're lifelong learners as educators. Outside of education, what's another area of passion and learning for you?
Sure. So I have to admit that I don't have many passion areas outside of education. But what I do is, take something in the education world and, apply it to my own life. So one thing that I'm interested right now is becoming more of a maker in my own life. And I'm currently taking Maker-Centered Learning. It's an online class through Harvard's Graduate School of Education and associated with Project Zero. And the whole idea is that the goal of being a maker is that you feel empowered to build and change the world around you. So instead of throwing my blow dryer away if it breaks, I'm really trying to be a maker in the sense of looking closely at the blow dryer, thinking about its parts, its purposes, its complexities, and finding an opportunity to fix it rather than, just throw it away. So I think when adults and kids understand that we can fix and redesign and hack objects, then we can also better understand how to fix the systems around us.
That is really challenging to me. I love learning about new things. I'm not always so curious when it comes to repairing things around my house. So
yeah.
I think that's a really good test of the forever curious sort of mindset that we want as educators. So that's very well put.
Yeah.
Lindsey, share about a personal habit that contributes to your success.
I try to spend a few minutes daily searching hashtags on Twitter that inspire me, whether that's like TLAP, so Teach Like a Pirate, or Innovator's Mindset. And whenever I spend, just 5 minutes looking at a hashtag, it always leads to either a good TED Talk to listen to, article to read, or an idea we're thinking about. Also, just spending those 5 minutes, looking for other like-minded people on Twitter and what they're doing, it's connected me with other people who are passionate about similar things. And I've been able to share resources with people that I would have never found. And I've even have video chatted with a teacher in Pennsylvania because I noticed we were doing similar work. And George Kuros says, if every teacher tweeted one thing a day that they did in school and took 5 minutes out of the day to read each other's tweets, like what an impact that would have on learning and school culture. And that really has had an impact on me.
That is so phenomenal. And yes, I did see that challenge. It's one worth repeating, right? Just the
Yes.
opportunity that we have in front of us as educators is unlike anything the world has seen before. So let's jump on it.
I agree.
Lindsey, we're moving into some rapid fire recommendations. So give us your top picks in a few different areas here, and just let us know why you recommend these items, whether it's a person or book. So we're going to start at Twitter. Tell us about someone we should be following on Twitter and explain why.
Sure. So one person, and he's a local here in Columbus, but his name is Jason Blair, and he's an elementary art teacher in Dublin, but he doesn't consider himself just an art teacher, but rather a teacher of the contemporary and of the ideas of today. And he's facilitating deep thinking on ideas in his art classroom with young learners in the primary classroom as well, on ideas like identity and emotion. And art is simply the vehicle that he's using to get there. So he's a true champion for creativity and change. And on his Twitter, you'll find collaboration projects that he's doing with other classroom teachers and how he's striving to make thinking and creativity visible as a way to honor the voice of his students.
He sounds amazing, and definitely an art teacher who's taking it to the next level. He is not just he's not just dropping in for his color with crayons time, is he?
Exactly.
He is thinking very deeply about his field.
Next, point us to an edtech tool that you really enjoy using in your classroom or maybe in your day-to-day work.
Sure. So this is simple and it's been around a while, but that is Google Slides, and I'm really advocating for its use with young children. Like I said, we've done a lot of passion projects in my classroom, and what my students have done with Google Slides to present their passion project has been amazing. And they've been able to figure so many things out on Google Slides that, I didn't even know existed with very little help. And, 6 and 7-year-olds are putting in pictures and texts and videos and links, and they figured it out all on their own. And if they didn't know how to do it, they asked somebody else how to do it. So when we talk about reading and writing about reading, I think Google Docs has been a really great way to bring those two together for my first grade students. And not only in terms of like literacy, but they've also had to persevere and face the ambiguity of not knowing what even a Google slide was before they started this project. And it's really helped them with problem solving as well.
That is so phenomenal. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but I had no idea first graders are operating Google Slides. That is so cool. And
it's
are
very
they?
Cool.
Yeah, so they're collaborating as well, right?
Oh, yeah. So they started with their passion projects individually. Everybody chose a topic and a question that they had. But by the end of the year, they were teaming up on projects, 2 or 3 people working together. And that was really interesting to see them work together on Google Slides and realize that they can access a document at home and access it at school and see what other people have done to the Google Slide. So I think in hindsight, Google Slides also taught them a lot about collaboration.
Phenomenal. Next, recommend a book, maybe one that you've been reading lately or one of your all-time faves, and tell us why you recommend it.
Sure. So again, I don't read many books outside of education, but one that I read before this school year that really kind of influenced my thinking was Broadcasting Happiness by Michelle Gielan. And she's a former news anchor who realized that the news is broadcasting a lot of the negative sides of stories. So, whenever there's a tragedy, they're focusing on the tragedy, but not telling the story of community members rallying behind somebody. So her message was that everybody is broadcasting something, and what we say can change others. And as teachers and as educators, we're constantly broadcasting a story, whether that is to our students or our colleagues or the parents. So I've really taken her book to heart, and it has influenced the way that I communicate.
I really like that recommendation, Lindsey. I noticed on your blog that you sort of credit this book as one of the motivations to start writing and blogging. And,
yes.
And for the listeners, I'll say that all of these links will be found at teachersonfire.net. So make sure to drop by and take a look for Broadcasting Happiness. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah, totally.
Lindsey, if you're a podcast listener, point us to a podcast that we should add to our list. And for the commuters, maybe that list is getting long, but give us one more to add.
Sure. So one of my favorite ones is iMOOC, so Innovators Mindset, massive open online course. And so it's in conjunction with an Innovators Mindset by George Couros, which I'm a huge fan of. And the podcast just takes the content of the book to another level as he brings in other like-minded authors like AJ Giuliani of Launch, or educational experts like Caleb Rashad from High Tech High. And they talk candidly about their experiences. They offer advice and encouragement, and they also share their inspiring stories. And anytime I listen to that podcast, I always walk away with a stronger innovator's mindset.
Excellent. George is a nonstop source of motivation on Twitter. I'm sure.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure it would be the same on his podcast. Next,
Yes.
and we're starting to wrap up, Lindsey, but tell us about a YouTube channel that you enjoy. And this might be one that you use in the classroom or one that you just find personally amusing.
Sure. I really like John Spencer's The Creative Classroom YouTube channel. And so John is the co-author of the book Launch and Empower. And his YouTube is filled with short, entertaining, animated sketch videos that either explain a topic in education or provoke thought. So I've used his videos, like one on Genius Hour, to communicate to parents, like what is Genius Hour, what is passion projects. He has a great one on like cooperation versus collaboration. And he also has his prompts that you can use with students for creative writing or creativity challenges.
Well, that sounds like another wealth of resources. So thank you for sharing about that one. Last question, Lindsey. It's the end of the day. You can't have, now I'm going to say in your case, you're drained for energy. You've got nothing left to think about education. What are you watching on Netflix these days?
Documentaries.
Of course.
I've watched almost all the health and food documentaries. So
right.
Now I'm on to some environmental documentaries. But my brain doesn't shut off, and I'm always seeking information. So I just seek information other than education information.
Well, definitely respect for that. And I have to say, yes, those health and nutrition documentaries have definitely made their way into our home as well. They've changed our diet. And I think Netflix deserves some credit for educating society through popular culture. So
absolutely.
Lindsey, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you for accepting my invitation. What is the best way for the listeners to follow you and get to know your content a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I'm active on Twitter, so at Lindsey Danhoff. And I also have a blog at WordPress. So I'd love to connect with folks.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much, Lindsey, and enjoy the rest of the school year.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Teachers on Fire, where teachers come to share, learn, and be inspired. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter at Teachers on Fire. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, saying goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast.